Hi, I'm John with Fan Diego, and you're watching this probably because your fan's making noise. So I'm going to go over what can cause a fan to tick. Now humming is a little bit different, and I'll do a different video for the causes of humming and how we can solve that. But this is based on a ticking noise. I'm going to go from the top down here. So first and really the most important thing in terms of having a fan quiet, ensuring that you have a quiet fan, is making sure your junction box is mounted very securely to the ceiling or to a brace. If there's any movement up here in your junction box, you're not going to get the fan to balance. It's going to wobble, and then the fan, chances are your fan's not going to be very quiet. From that point, you've got your mounting bracket here, secures, and there's different kinds of mounting brackets, but most of them secure to your junction box with 2 holes, 2 screws. You want to make sure that it's really tight. No movement at all here and here. Now, getting to the fan parts here, this ball is important because this ball is held in place with a pin, but there's some room between the ball and the down rod here, so there's a screw that you have to tighten inside this ball to keep the ball secure to the down rod, so there's no movement there. If there is, you can hear a little bit of a clicking sound as the down rod moves inside that ball. So one other thing to consider about the mounting ball is that you'll see that there's a groove in each mounting ball here, and the groove is meant to sit in a little piece that juts out of your mounting bracket. Now I'll show you here when you spin it that it'll set itself into that groove. It's really important that the fan's in that groove. If it's not, it can kind of work itself around and try to get itself into that groove. And that can cause a ticking sound. So here it's going to fall in here and you'll see it. See, now once it's in that spot, I can't move this around anymore. Well, very little, but it's not going to cause a ticking sound. Next, you've got your canopy here, and I have this down for a reason here. Your canopy has to be nice and tight up to the ceiling. There needs to be no wiggle room whatsoever, so this whole section up here has to be extremely tight. Now, down here, this is a really important part as well. If you see your fan move like this, or kind of jerk side to side when it starts, you know there's a problem either here in the down rod, that screw isn't tight, or up here. The fans are held in, if you have a down rod that screws into the top of your fan, you won't have this issue. But some fans don't screw in, or down rods don't screw into the top of the fan, rather. They slide and they're held in place with a pin and a set screw. If this is the kind of fan you have, you got to make sure that it's tight up here where the down rod comes into the top of the motor. That's extremely important. Or else you get this kind of movement or this kind of movement, and your fan's never going to be quiet. Now, for new fans, this really isn't much of an issue. But you want to make sure that all your screws here in your housing are nice and tight. Again, if it's brand new in the box, you shouldn't have to concern yourself with that. But if it's an older fan, just make sure that every single screw in your fan is tight. Now, kind of moving below your motor housing here, your blades can be the culprit. Oftentimes, you'll see a little bit with some of the older fans, the screws here will loosen up a little bit just with age. And so make sure that your screws that hold the blades into the blade irons are nice and tight. If you have high gloss blades, what can happen over time is that the high gloss finish breaks and there becomes some room in between the screw back here and your blade iron. So if that's the case, get some felt washers, put them in the back here, tighten that up, and that can take care of the problem. Your blade irons, right in here, you want to make sure that the blade irons are affixed really tightly to either your flywheel or the motor housing. If not, this whole thing's going to move a little bit, and you're going to hear a ticking sound. Moving on to your switch cup housing. This is usually below the fan. Now, some switch cup housings have a little bit of an opening up here, and if you hear a ticking sound that's consistent with the rotation of the fan, meaning that it's kind of slow, rhythmic, but slow in the lower speed, kind of picks up in the medium speed, and it's faster in the high speed, what's happening is something is hitting your blades. Now, it could be that you got a little wire nut sticking up here, or you have part of a wire sticking up here, and it can be causing a clicking sound. Or inside your motor housing here, there are some fans that have starting capacitors in there, and if your fan is one of those kinds, then there could be a wire inside your motor housing that's kind of worked its way down and is hitting one of your blade irons as it spins. So check those areas as well. The switch cup housings it's important that that be extremely tight as well. They're held on differently. Some have 3 or 4 screws around the top here. Some have 2 screws on the bottom. The ones that have the 3 or 4 screws on the top, it's kind of hard for those things to loosen up. I mean, once you tighten those well once, you really shouldn't have to worry about them again. This one is an Emerson fan. It has the 2 screws on the bottom. And this one's pretty loose. A customer brought this in for us to fix, and it's a great example of what you want to, and it's a great example of what needs to be done to make sure your fan doesn't make any noise. You can see here, I'm not sure you can see, but the mounting plate has come off a little bit here, and so there's some space in here. You got to make sure that's nice and tight. There can't be any space here. You don't want any movement there. This is a light kit. There's a piece of glass that goes on the bottom here, and we've left the glass off so you can see what goes on down here, but you can see that this light kit isn't on very tight. And so when the fan moves, if there's any movement at all, this is going to move as well. So what you can hear is, you might hear the chain rattling against the glass or against one of the metal parts up here. You might hear a metal ticking from this part moving down here. When you put your glass on, you want to make sure that the glass is nice and tight, your finial is nice and tight. Bottom line for ticking is something's loose in your fan or something's hitting. So you want to go through the fan, make sure that you tighten everything up, make sure that no wires or wire caps are scraping any kind of moving parts. Once you've done that, you should take care of any kind of ticking noise.